Metamorphosis is a Greek word that means transformation or change in shape. And the butterfly is one of a few insects that grow through this process. Transforming from caterpillar to monarch, this happens in 4 stages: birth, growth, transition, reproduce. No one really knows where we come from before birth. It is faith that defines this for most. Is our destiny set? Is it a birthright guaranteed? Or is it something we work for, brick by brick? Again, no one really knows. In the case of the caterpillar, its destiny is to transform. But before it can do that, it must literally eat and eat and eat, consuming vital nutrients, shedding its skin 4 to 5 times, multiplying its size 100 times over. This all must happen before the actual transformation process takes place. But still, none of it is guaranteed. It is a journey, a venture that requires perseverance, ambition, and courage. If the caterpillar is fortunate to complete the transition to become butterfly, I believe it only makes sense that it reproduce. So this process continues and the legacy lives on, creating an ethos of progression. When I was 26 years old, I was starting my first real career. I was destined to become a real estate mogul. I had 2 reasons why I chose this career. 1 was because I wanted to be rich. And 2, I didn't want to work that hard. And in my eyes, real estate was the perfect path to accomplish this goal, because instead of going to school for 4 years to get a degree and then work my way up brick by brick, all I had to do was pay a couple $1,000s, go to school for about a month, and then pass what they say is arguably one of the hardest tests in the world to pass, next to the bar, and then I was on my way to becoming a mogul. My first 2 years in real estate were amazing. I helped over a dozen people become first-time home buyers. I had bought my first home. I had 2 investment properties, and I was living the life that I had set out to live. And most importantly, I was making more money than I ever thought I would make in my life. And then in 2008, the market crashed. Everything that I had worked for over the last 2 years fell out from beneath me, and I was only 28 years old, and because I chose the easy path, I had nothing to fall back on. I did have some money in the bank, so I was feeling good about that, but I was lost. My career was over. And so I did what any person in that situation would do. I went home to my mom, and I talked to her about how I was feeling. And my mom lived in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and there was a Boys and Girls Club that I had attended as a kid, and so I stopped by that Boys and Girls Club, and I asked if they needed any volunteers. They asked me if I was interested in being a basketball coach. I said yes. I started coaching basketball. Didn't really think much about all the things I had lost because I was back home where it all started for me. Then, 3 months into that, the real estate market did not come back, and I needed a job. So the Boys and Girls Club hired me, and I became a youth development specialist. I was 28 going on 29, embarking on my second career, and I loved it. The only problem was I didn't make much money, but it was okay because I didn't need much at that particular point because I had found my passion. 1 year into working at the Boys and Girls Club, a friend of mine asked me to go to a poetry open mic. I had a crush on this friend, and so I went, not because I liked poetry, but because I liked her. And I was introduced to the world of spoken word poetry. And for the first time, in my life, I found something that I didn't think I would ever like that felt right. It just felt right. And so after going to this open mic for a couple of weekends in a row, I started going home, I started writing poems. I convinced myself that I was going to get up on the microphone and read a poem in front of a room full of strangers for no reason other than just following a feeling that I had. I experienced an amazing, amazing transformation. I took that back to the Boys and Girls Club where I was working, and I started to teach kids how to find their voice, how to build their brand, how to deal with their social and emotional issues through poetry. I founded a nonprofit organization. Somebody here at the Mesa Arts Center caught wind of that. I think her name was Mandy Tripoli. She asked me and a friend of mine who I was working with at the time if we would go into schools with an artist that was coming into town. We said yes. That turned into Project Lit, which turned into a position at the city, which turned into me now being the director of engagement. Bam. I hardly ever think about real estate because I'm living my purpose and I feel fulfilled every day. But 2 years ago, when my mom got breast cancer, my world changed. I wasn't really worried about her dying, but I also wasn't comfortable with the fact that she might. So I spent as much time as I could with my mom. In fact, I even lost my P-card privileges because I didn't submit my receipts on time because I was at chemotherapy with my mom. Just a little tad bit of information. My mom asked me about real estate. We talked about it. She said one of her biggest regrets was that she never bought a house because she wanted to be able to pass down some legacy to my brother and I. I went home that night and I enrolled in real estate school. I took the classes again. This time I did not pass the test on the first try. It took me 3 to 4 times. I asked myself, why am I doing it? I have a great career, I have a great job. I'm really not interested in getting back into real estate, but something in my spirit told me to do so. And I got my license, and I decided that I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I just wanted to help people build generational wealth. That was 2 years ago. I know that because my license is getting ready to expire. And that's a big deal in the real estate game because it costs a lot of money to extend your license. And I'll be very honest, I don't have clients because I'm not a real estate agent. But I have helped in 2 years 2 people become first-time home buyers. I teach workshops in the community that I grew up in at the same Boys and Girls Club that I coached basketball on the weekends and in the afternoons and in the evenings, and teaching people financial literacy. It's a labor of love. And I share this story with you because today what we are talking about in this particular session is what seeds are you sowing? And when I think about that, I think that for most people, myself included, we want fast money, we want an easy path, and we plant those seeds, and when they don't produce the fruit that we want right away, we move on to something else. And for me, it's crazy because this journey spans almost 20 years, from the first time I have my real estate license to where I'm at now. And when Mandy asked me to speak to you guys about what the whole intent of this meeting was, this was the story I wanted to tell. And I'm telling you this because I believe that we are all destined for some type of greatness. We all have a mission and a purpose in life. And what I have learned is that it takes time to investigate what that is. It takes patience, it takes perseverance, and you have to cultivate the things that matter to you. You have to cultivate them when there's no guarantee that there will be fruit on the end of that vine. And so what I want to do as we get ready to step into what we're going to do today is I want to ask everybody where you're sitting to think of one thing that matters to you, one value. And for me, the value that connects everything that I just said was community. I wanted to become a real estate agent when I was 26 because I wanted to help people be in houses, which is a little part of community. When I started working at the Boys and Girls Club, I realized I was going back into my community. I was helping build community. When I started poetry, it was a part of a community. When I started working here, it was a part of a community. And even though real estate and poetry and youth development and basketball don't have any direct links, the link for me was community. I define community as a place that we go to build, a place that requires patience, a place where you have to be rooted in order for you to reap what you sow. That's my definition of community. So what I want to ask you all is think of one value that you have that matters the most to you. And I want you to define it for yourself. And this is the most important part because Robbie could also value community. But Robbie's definition of community might be different from my definition of community. And if we're working together to build community and we're getting frustrated because we're running into this wall and it doesn't make sense, maybe it's because we haven't articulated what our definition of this abstract word is. And so think about it, not too long because we don't have a lot of time. Define it for yourself. Turn to your neighbor. Tell your neighbor what your value is, what your definition is. And then if anybody would like to share that with the group, I invite you to do so. And again, this is not just some warm and fuzzy thing that I'm doing. If it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, great. But the reality is that this is the work that it takes to live in your purpose and to fulfill your purpose in life. We have to do the work. So, everybody think about it, define it, talk to your neighbors, and I'm gonna walk around with my fancy little camera and I'm gonna get some content because I think maybe my next career after I retire from the city is videotaping real estate agents and taking all their money for me to do their marketing. Just saying, I don't know, just putting it out there. All right, cool, go.